Today I'm going to do something that I haven't done in 4 years, and I've only done, I think, 3 times in the last 9 years. You ready? Check this out. Whoa! Bet you were not expecting that, were you? No, it's a little bit crazy. Alright, so let me tell you the story behind this. This is my brother Ian. Now, Ian is 4 years younger than I am, and we've just had kind of an ongoing thing our whole lives where we look a lot like each other and people make comments about it all the time. And one year for Halloween, he snuck into my house, crawled in through my bedroom door, put on a bunch of my clothes, and came downstairs where we were having a big Halloween party. And everybody thought that he was me. In fact, it got to the point where some of my friends were legitimately irritated with him, thinking that he was me and that I just didn't bother to dress up for the party. So this year, my wife and I decided to go as him and his wife for Halloween. But there's some real kind of potency to making a big drastic change like this, and that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. Alright, so the first thing I want to talk about is the idea of pattern disruption, because it's a real thing. In fact, if you've been following me for a while, you're probably really distracted and can't really pay attention to what I'm saying right now because this just looks so weird. It's such a disconnect from what you're used to seeing that it becomes a distraction. Now, obviously, if this is your first or even, your first of just a few videos watching, then it's not that big of a deal and the disruption of the pattern isn't nearly as prominent as if you had already had something established. And what that points to is the idea that there is power in disrupting a pattern or in doing something against what the expectations of other people are. Now, you may not always want to use that, but when you do want to use it, it's worth knowing how to do it. And there's 2 different ways that patterns can be established. The first one is what you've already seen with me. Now, beards aren't necessarily a huge societal norm. Yeah, they're getting there, but not every man wears a beard, and it's not weird to see a man who's clean shaven. But they are a personal norm for me. I've had a beard for almost 10 years now, and only at very short stints have I gone without it. And so anyone who's known me for a long time just defines me as Tanner's a guy who wears a beard. If I were to be drawn as a comic book character or drawn as like a caricature, one of those that you get at Disneyland or something, I would definitely be drawn with a beard at most points within the last 10 years. And so I have disrupted my own personal pattern by getting rid of this. Now, the second way is an actual societal or a cultural or a tribal pattern because, take this suit for example. If I were to walk into the boxing gym wearing this suit, even if my grooming and everything else were exactly the same, I would be disrupting the pattern of what the men in there are used to seeing, and so it would be drawing attention to myself. Now, that's not always a positive thing. Extra attention is not always a good thing, and so you want to be able to use this just like any other tool when it's appropriate to do so. By going into some other environment, it's the same thing as speaking really loudly in a library. The pattern that people are used to experiencing is one of quiet, one of somberness, and so if you go in and you're throwing a party and you're loud and you're kind of wild in a library, pattern disrupt, extra attention. It's not just the way that you dress, it's the way that you act, it's the way that you speak. Si yo hablara español, le sorprendiera, right? I mean, all of a sudden, it's a whole different language, that's not what I'm used to hearing. Extra attention, pattern disruption. It's the way that you groom, it's the way that you dress, it's anything related to your presence. If you break up what other people are used to seeing in you personally or in a cultural group as a whole, you get extra attention. So the first thing we talked about was the idea that you want to do pattern disruption, but there's power in the other side of that, which is pattern creation. Because if you have such a strong thing about you, whether that's the way that you look, the way that you groom, the way that you carry yourself, or the way that you speak, then that in a way becomes its own sense of pattern disruption. So you're taking this kind of group pattern and you're disrupting it with your own consistency with a separate pattern that you've created for yourself. Because that way it becomes almost an icon, or you start to become an icon for something that you're trying to represent. You can look at guys who, let's look at some media examples. Talk about the Joker from Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. Now, really any Joker, but obviously Heath Ledger's Joker, you've got this pattern that's established as far as
him being a certain kind of character. There's a little bit of campiness, but there's a certain amount of perfection and perfectionism that applies to the old school Joker from like the 60s or Jack Nicklaus's Joker from the 80s. And then all of a sudden Heath Ledger's comes in. It's a total pattern disrupt, but it's still his own pattern. It's still his own call sign, something that you know is very, very him. Or take a look at like Jim from The Office. I know that show hasn't been on for a little while, but Jim with this kind of wispy, like winged hair, that was very much his own pattern within The Office. And it fit his personality as being kind of the laid-back, cool guy who didn't take anything or take himself too seriously. His clothing and his hair communicated that. And it did it even more so in contrast to the way that everybody else in The Office looked. And so by creating your own pattern that is a disrupt of what other people are used to seeing or experiencing, then you're able to draw more attention to yourself. You're able to draw a stronger correlation between what you say and what you do. You're able to be more memorable, and you're able to have more of a visual and therefore more of an overall impact on the people around you. I would love to know what you think. Have you seen examples of this, whether it's complete pattern disruption or establishing your own pattern that's a disruption of kind of the group? The beard is coming back. I know it's going to drive some of you guys crazy. It's driving me crazy. But as always, I hope you guys loved the video. Leave it a thumbs up. Let me know in your comments below what you think of this idea of pattern disruption and how this can apply to you in your own quest to develop a stronger presence. Leave me a comment below, and I will catch you on the next one.